Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff Needell, and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to episode 30 of Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport roundup. Where have these 30 gone the last 30 weeks? We've been a bit slack the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
It's been a bit...
No, you have.
Not slack. We've just been incredibly busy, so we haven't been able to deliver on the Monday. And you were off gallivanting. Tiff Needell was off gallivanting in Edinburgh last weekend.
Okay, yeah.
But we've got a busy week. There's Formula One's back in Turkey. Lots of excitement there. The Caterham Academy. Now, what a conclusion that was. We'll come on to that.
Yeah.
Elsewhere in the national scene, we had DTM, which ended in a bit of controversy at the GT World Europe. That was concluded in Barcelona. Back home, we had BTCC in Donington Park for the penultimate round. So it's all getting exciting there as well. NASCAR, of course, with plenty of drama from the Charlotte Roval, as they call it. Half road, half oval. But I think, without further ado, as big as Caterham is, we have to kick off with Formula One because it was quite an eventful Formula One, and it was good to see.
Yes and no. I didn't know. I tweeted it was a bit. It didn't really kick off. I think I was frustrated because Turkey's got this amazing Turn 8, which we've talked about when it was shut down, when it ran its first series, and now we've had two wet Turkish Grand Prix, so we haven't had that awesome 28G Turn 8, which I was quite looking forward to, and it wasn't really much of a race, to be honest. Who's clicking now? No,
it was me. My cat's run up the stairs. If I do that...
That's very annoying. That.
I know.
I've told you to click your fingers a lot.
I'm very sorry for our listeners and viewers.
So where was I?
Turkey. 28 Gs on the turn. And
whatever it was. But the great corner. And Valtteri had a fantastic drive, but disappeared. Max just drove around in second place. And it never really caught a light, I don't think, the race. And we had that magical moment, when Lewis was trying to get by Checo, which was really good, for four corners side by side. But apart from that,
well, I think that
really,
yeah, I guess so. Mercedes looked like they're back on the pace and really took it to Red Bull. But I think the talking point is, and still in hindsight now, a lot of people can't decide what should Lewis have done. Should he have stayed out there and risked his tyres? Or did he do the right thing? Of course, he disobeyed team orders early about coming in, stayed out there. And so that, I guess that's the main talking point. And
I think, looking at Ocon, apparently Ocon suddenly dropped like 10 seconds a lap, the only one that did go to the end. And he lost, like 10 seconds the last two laps. So he probably would have ended up fifth if he'd stayed out. And he finished fifth when he changed the tyres. So I don't think it actually harmed him much. So... But it was a good fight. It was a good fight. But everyone really, in the end, all 20 cars finished in those atrocious conditions. And they all pretty much ended up where you expect them to be, apart from perhaps McLaren. They seem to go up and down a bit in the McLaren. Lando was, he's done 8th, I think, had a bit of a quiet weekend. Gasly, of course, it's like whenever McLaren do well, AlphaTauri are bad. And when AlphaTauri go well, McLaren, they swap tracks. But, of course, the other controversy was, punting Alonso at turn 1. And I don't know, there's something about Alonso. I know he's got massive fans the world over, and he's an epic driver. But at times, I think he thinks he's more important than everybody else. And he did that deliberate run into the runoff area in Russia, because he'd apparently been overtaken at another circuit at turn 1 when maybe it was a Red Bull ring. And so he deliberately did that. That was completely pre-planned to go through the runoff area. And then, in qualifying, he went out on lap 1 when everyone was worried the rain would come down more. And he set a reasonable lap time because people thought it would rain more with waved yellows. And then if someone else had done that, he would then deliberately complain. And then he goes around the outside of Gasly at turn 1 in the wet. Formula One cars understeer. Everyone knows Formula One cars basically understeer. So he always risked getting clouted by someone, and I'm glad he did. But Gasly got them. I don't think Gasly deserved that. That was a racing incident, turn 1 racing incident, and I don't think poor old Pierre could have done much else.
Yeah.
So Alonso's always stirring it up, and I sometimes think he thinks he's bigger than Formula One.
Well, speaking of
But otherwise,
speaking of stirring it up, Christian Horner's come out this morning. He's surprised, I quote, at the extra speed Mercedes have now got on the straight. Mercedes always seem to have something up their sleeve, and Christian Horner's a master at sort of getting it psychologically, isn't he?
Stirring him up.
Yeah, he does. He does like to stir them up a little bit, but it'd be very, very interesting. Of course, Max is now back in the lead of the championship.
Yeah.
And Lewis has got it all to do, but it's going to be a phenomenal end to the season.
Run and run and run.
But there's still lots of races. There seems to be so many races, which is great for us fans. But I don't know about the drivers. They must be exhausted. I'm exhausted after a few races at the Caterham Academy.
There's a lot of complaining about still in read another story though. Chandok was tweeting that they're moaning about 23 races, too much for our families. And but sometimes when I think if you think it's too hot in the kitchen, get out of it. It's an amazing job to have, and if you have a family, a young family, well then stay in the factory and work there. I know some people have to go overseas, but I think I get bored with people moaning about there being too many races. To be honest, it's an amazing sport. The more, you look at NASCAR boys, they race every weekend from about January to December. But so yes,
who's going to win the championship? Lewis or Max?
Still going to be Lewis.
Still going to be Lewis.
I'm sorry.
Who's going to win
Lewis?
Who's going to win the constructors championship? Mercedes or Red Bull?
Don't care at all.
But I want to know your opinion. The listeners and viewers want to know your opinion.
I'd be Mercedes because Checo's not doing well enough. I mean, he had another bad weekend. That's what Max needs, the backup. At least this weekend, Lewis had the backup of Valtteri doing the job that the number 2 is required to take points off the opposition when the cars have got the advantage. But Checo made a mistake in qualifying again. And he ended up third, but he was way back from Max, and could well have lost that third to Lewis on another occasion. So yeah, Mercedes.
Okay, good. And I agree. And I hope you're right with Lewis. I know we got lots of Max fans. I like Max. I like his driving style, but he's just that. He's a bit like Alonso as well. Let's be fair. If Max has got the corner, Max has got the corner. It's 50-50.
The other way around.
Yeah, exactly. But so let's go.
Let's get on to some real racing. I was there watching.
And I tell you
you've now finished your first season of motorsport. Caterham Academy. What a fantastic racing series.
It is absolute. Anyone that hasn't seen anything, and I'm sure anyone that's listening in will know about it. But the Caterham Academy series runs every year. 2 different grids, 25 cars in each grid, and it is just the most. And it teaches people how to race. Really, well, you learn how to race, and it is the most phenomenal experience you could ever possibly have. It's nice,
except while you were out there having fun driving them, I was the one trying to work out the points permutations. We had 2 rounds at Snetterton last weekend.
We'll come on to that. I was just going to say. And I want to say this with my hand on my heart. Out of all the things we've done, I mean, you've done a bit more than me, but I've done some pretty phenomenal things in the automotive world. It was the best automotive experience I've ever had in my life. It was so good. And it's 30 grand. It's 30 grand. And you need your car.
Whole thing.
It is phenomenal. But as Tiff said, the points permutations in both groups, it literally came down to the final straight, crossing the line, less than a car's length, for both races for the whole championship. It was
2 groups.
2 groups. You couldn't make it up. It's better than Hollywood script. It's incredible. And it's this.
In fact, I was watching it, Snetterton, which you'll see our live report coming on Lovecars shortly. But I was literally in commentary live from the last corner, and I knew that if Jeff got the fastest lap, so I had to look at my TSL timing on my phone because I knew he was going to win the race as they left the last corner. But it was only when that fastest lap clicked up that Jeff had won it and not Freddie. So it's just amazing.
So Jeff Newman and Freddie Chiddicks were battling it out the whole way through. And in 3rd place was Mark Jones, who's the Caterham mechanic, who's a brilliant driver. But it was really between those 2. And
the white group, just as close, Charlie Lower and Harry George.
It was, but in the green group with the guys, you're right, Tiff, because it was literally that Freddie Chiddicks had the fastest lap until the final lap as well. So not only did they overtake each other several times on the race for position, they literally finished the race within a car's length of each other. And Jeff got the fastest lap literally on the last lap to win the championship. That's how close it was. And a little bit of controversy, and I think my whole season has been all about if, buts, maybes, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But
you've led and lost. It's better to have led and lost than to have never led at all, Paul. At least you led for a while.
You're right. I did lead a few races, but briefly. Jeff Newman. So one of the races that did I lead this? But anyway, Knock Hill, second day, when there was a big crash, had a big head-on crash at Knock Hill. Jeff Newman caused that crash. Clearly just an accident, but he still got the fastest lap, even though he didn't finish. He did a DNF. He still was awarded the 1 point for the fastest lap, and that 1 point made all the difference in that championship.
I didn't.
So it did.
I didn't. Because that was his drop score. He still got 1 point for the fastest lap. So he still took that 1 point for the fastest lap that went on his point for the championship, even though that was a drop score for him. So it didn't count in the end total.
Yes, it did.
We're going to have a row about this. We've got people who want to listen to the rest of the world's motorsport. That 1 point, 1 point was not part of his final score.
Well, according to his championship main rival, Fred Chinnix, it made up the part of his score. So we'll do a steward's inquiry into that one, and we'll have a look into that, and we'll report back next week. But in the white group, you're absolutely right as well. It was neck and neck all season. There were 3 runners really, but there was 2 main front runners: Harry George and Charlie Lower, and there was another chap called William as well, William James. But again, they were overtaking many times throughout the race, 4th position, and it was literally won on the line by Charlie Lower. So what an amazing story. And it's a lovely story as well, because Charlie Lower, and he won't mind me telling you this, he has done it on probably the smallest budget of anyone. He hasn't been able to afford much testing or new tyres or nice setups on his car. So he won't mind me saying. So, a lot of raw talent there.
Anyway. All of this will be in a special Caterham story.
I mean,
the world wants to know about what happened to the rest of the world now.
Oh, yeah, okay. So brilliant Caterham. Oh, can I just say where I finished? No, that's boring. We'll do that on the...
It was a good fit. It was good. You're running second in the first race, and then you're flipping out that blooming weak, leaking brake caliper, which was such a shame for you, I know. And then you got your brakes back. But all this will be covered. Yeah, it will. Special story.
But the way you've got to look at this, and you get so worked up about the moment, and we all want to win. We're all doing this because we want to win. But reality is, you sit back and you think, this has been the most fun, amazing experience of my life in terms of automotive. So, and it's not going to change my life whether I finish second, third, fourth.
I'm getting bored now. Our listeners will be switching off. Do you realise you've gone on too long on Caterhams? Do you realise that now?
There's more Caterhams to come, because the other championships end in a couple of weeks at Cadwell Park as well. So let's go to DTM. Had some fun. Did DTM, what's the full title of this DTM World Series thing, World Europe thing?
No, that is just DTM.
Oh, okay.
There's another World Series of GT racing.
Sorry, GT World Europe.
So the DTM ended a big controversy because it was really, the Kiwi Lawson's sort of championship to win. But this South African kid in his Audi, Kelvin van der Linde, he was the man that was running second, but he took them all out at the first corner, and they banged into each other, and they all lost their points. And so Mercedes then all of a sudden came into the title run, and they quickly, towards the end of the second race, put team orders on all the drivers and got their highest points bringing bloke to come up from third to win the final race and take the tempers off of Lawson. So it didn't end well. Team orders at that level. It had been building up to such a great race, but Kelvin was just a bit wild. It wasn't Nick Casti, of course. He was the other one, Lawson. What's Lawson's first name? You don't know either. They all end up in a bit of a shame. A, for bad driving around the famous Norris Ring, and B, for team orders by Mercedes. Well, so that ended a bit of a puff.
Can I just say one little story about team orders, because people do actually like your stories. We had lots of nice comments and feedback on last week's where there wasn't much going on. In Japan, you had some team orders about letting a very famous racing driver through, which you should tell that story very quickly, because it's such a lovely story that you had a lock up on the final lap because they pulled it forward a lap quicker. And
the Danish Grand Prix, not Japan.
Danish.
That's when I won the Danish Grand Prix, because I was a sort of second. I was in Formula 4 2000 by then, but I was brought in by Hawke to help Derek Warwick win the European Championship in Formula 4 1600, and we went out to the Danish Grand Prix, and I rather upset the the 1976 Formula 4 boys by putting on pole position and beating them all, and then led the race. But I said, okay, I'll let Derek Warwick by, don't worry. But I said, as long as he's second and we pull a gap. But obviously, I want to, for my own pride, I want to lead until the last lap, and then everyone will know that I would have won it if I hadn't let him by team orders. And when I went, the pit signaling was on the last corner before the straight, bizarrely, where the finish was. As I went back with still a lap and a half to go, well, a lap and a quarter, I was looking at my pit, but they're all sort of jumping up and down and waving at me. I said, yeah, I know, don't worry, I know, I'll let him by on the next lap. And as I looked up again, there was this bloke dropping the checkered flag. So I hit the brakes, locked up all four wheels, crossed the line to win the Danish Grand Prix with all four wheels locked up, and Derek Warwick about half a car length behind me, desperately trying to overtake. But it turned out they dropped the flag a lap early. And of course, in the regulations, when the flag drops, it's over. So I think the opposition had bribed the flag man. that was sort of team orders.
Danish Grand Prix winner. Okay, so the GT World Europe. What is that called? That big title?
I'd talk about it more. If it wasn't for that, we'd have to keep on introducing the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS. Now, This is a fantastic. It's the old Blancpain. When it was Blancpain, it was Blancpain Endurance and Blancpain Sprint. We all sort of knew it, and it was simple to follow. But of course, it's a fantastic series to compete in. They do the Spa 24-hour races, all part of their series. But there's three different classes. There's pros and pro-ams and silvers. So there's three different drivers' championships in the sprint, and three different in the endurance, and the teams have championships. So it gets a bit tricky to read out all the winners' names. But it finished in Barcelona, and I just want to pick out one winner, because the winners of the Pro-Am Fanatec GT World Europe Championship was my brother's Barwell team with their Lamborghini, their private Lamborghini. So well done, Barwell Motorsport, for winning their championship in the Pro-Am category. But yeah, it's fantastic racing to watch as well. It doesn't get enough coverage, but it's got good Eurosport coverage and stuff. But it's just quite complicated with all the different categories and all the different classes.
Yeah, well, I didn't watch it anyway. I'll be honest with you. That's what
Nor did I.
we do. That's why we've got this. But it's got a good name. It's probably got the best name out of any motor race. Can you think of a better, longer name on a motor race?
No.
Below in the comments.
No.
Okay, so where we go now? We're going to Donington for BTCC?
Well, back home. Yeah, back home. So we've done the international stuff. Back in England, from Snetterton Caterhams to Donington BTCC. Another fairly normal-ish weekend, but it was good to see Gordon Shedden back in form. He was on pole in his Honda and won both races. Well, he didn't actually win the second race on the road, because who was it they shoved? He got a shove in the back from Tom Ingram, who actually won on the road, but he was deemed to have given Gordon a bit too much of a shove, which I would have thought BTC is impossible to do. But anyway, Ingram was sent back, and Shedden won two races. But then came race 3. Now, Colin Turkington made a big mistake in race 2. He'd spun at the old hairpin by a driver error, dropped a lot of points. He's still third in the championship, trying to catch Ash Sutton. But then this is such an important championship, but it's this sort of made-up world with all the extra weight is one thing. But Colin Turkington won his 60th BTCC race, closed up the points gap in the championship, simply because Jody Kidd picked ball number 11 out of a fishbowl.
That's disgraceful.
Well, it's not. It's the way it works. It's a contrived formula that keeps, the drivers and more people able to win the championship. But I just, it's when sometimes I think,
no, that's not a good format. You can't have luck in motor.
Well, they've been doing it for years. That's the way they work it, and it brings drama. It brings, surprise winners. Someone that hasn't won a race ever in their life, they get number 11 out the fishbowl. And they'll win their first two races.
Well, I tell you someone who does know how to win races, your old mate Jason Plato, but not recently. Is it going to come? Because he's got a magical number just around it. I mean, he did very well.
He qualified third.
Yeah.
Dropped back. I think second race, he got barged off in the second race. I think didn't look too good. He got down about 17th, and he won't be a happy man, Jason. He's very proud. He wants those 100 wins, but it's getting harder and harder for him to do. I'm probably the same age as Jason, and your reactions go a little bit, your eyesight goes a little bit, everything goes a little bit. It doesn't get much better. Sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, exactly. Everything goes, exactly. Hearing as well. So
But NASCAR, let's go back across the pond, leave BTCC behind. Their final round's coming up, so it's still very exciting. But NASCAR was great entertainment. I don't know if you managed to see that last night.
And did they call it a roval, or is that your made-up?
Yeah, that's the name. They call it. That is the official, the roval at Charlotte. And it was the most amazing evening's entertainment if you were watching it and know all the people, because the subplot that was caused attention was that, I remember about 3 weeks ago, I said Kevin Harvick wanted to rip Chase Elliott's head off because Elliott had got back in front of him and balked him so that Kyle Larson could come by and win. Kyle Larson beat Elliott's teammate. So there was a lot of bitterness after that race. Well, anyway, about a third of the way, or a quarter of the way into the roval, Mr. Harvick got on Mr. Elliott's tail, and as they do in NASCAR, he gave him a thump. Sent Elliott in the wall backwards. The back of his car, the wing was all smashed up. But it's like a sub, because incredibly, they repaired the car, and out he came with the bits hanging off the back of his car, with the spotters saying, "Don't worry, we'll get him." And the whole point, this is the race that decided when it drops from 12 to 8. So 4 of the people with this race would drop out for the final 8 that begin the last 4 races of the series. So now Elliott was out and Harvick was in, and they were all working out the permutations. And if you can catch him and nail him, then Elliott would be the one who went through and not Harvick. In the end, right towards the end of the race, Elliott was closing and closing. They just got to within a car length of Harvick. And Harvick, I think, was looking at his mirrors and thinking, oh, he's coming, the boy's coming. He locked up on his own and slammed it into the wall. So Harvick went out. He's out of the series now. He can't make the final 8. And Elliott got through to make the final 8. So that was just one subplot. But in the middle of all this, Kyle Larson, who I'm a big fan of and who's dominated the season, he had an alternator failure. And all of a sudden, his battery's down to 4 volts. He had to pit. They put a new battery in, and they send him out again. And then as soon as a yellow flag, they come in and they've got an alternator belt changed in a really hot oven of a bonnet. And he was out. He wouldn't have made the final 8. This stage, Larson, the hero, if that had happened. But luckily, they fixed the alternator, and then he came back to the field to not just qualify, but actually win the race. Got by the last 5 laps on a restart. And it was just so much excitement and drama, because it was in the middle of the people trying to make the last 8. Who was it? It was who was trying to get through? William Barham had to win, because some of the people didn't have enough points. So Barham was a must win. That's another subplot. But Tyler Reddick, who's never had a win and not even in the top 8, wanted just a win. And he tapped poor old William Barham, so lost Barham the win. Kyle Larson came through to take it, which gives him bonus points. There's so many subplots. And if you're into NASCAR and understand all the subplots, there's just so much going on. And it was brilliant entertainment.
So do the drivers get a penalty for hitting another one up the rear and sending them into the barrier?
It's happened rarely. There was one case when someone that was about 4 laps down, parked up, waited for the guy he had the grudge against to come out, and just charged off the edge of the road and nailed him. But they do allow an awful amount of retaliation, tit for tat.
Wow.
It does go on. Yeah, it's sort of part of NASCAR, and everybody knows it.
Crash, bang, wallet.
Back to the Formula One stewards. They'd be in meetings all day long, wouldn't they? Gosh, they could give Gasly a tap for tapping Alonso. I don't know what they'd think about it.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting crossover, wouldn't it? So
I enjoyed it a lot. There's only 5 races left. NASCAR this week, they in Texas, they do an oval, then they've got a short track, and then they've got a road course. So 3 more rounds will drop it from 8 to the final 4. The final 4 going to the one race, winner takes all championship rounds. So drama guaranteed.
Brilliant. Well, I will watch some NASCAR, especially as it's starting to get dramatic. Maybe I'll fast forward a little bit. But next week we've got some World Rally Championships in Spain. And it's
Elfyn.
Yeah, has he left it too late? Ogier still in the lead. I mean, let's hope
it's
for
20.
Another
It's 24
win.
points now. 24 points the gap. But because Ogier was 5th in Finland, and Elfyn he closed the gap by 20. Just that last rally. So it is possible. Yeah. If Ogier doesn't get his act together or has some problems, so Elfyn can still clutch that with 2 rounds to go. British GT go to Donington for their final round, where Barwell Motorsport, did I mention them earlier? a lead in the British Championship with their Lamborghini, and a good result then would give them their second consecutive British GT title. NASCAR, as we said, in Texas. Bike-wise, there's still some good bikes. The World Superbikes with the Turk Toprak, Gasly Oglu, looks to hold on to his knee. We've got the two Brits, Jonathan Ray and Scott Redding out. They're at a new track out in the middle of Argentina somewhere. Hell of a trip for them. Whereas the British Superbikes, they're finishing Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Great place for watching bikes this weekend. And the British Superbike title will be decided. They also use a similar to the NASCAR, but it's more of a point system when they cut the thing down. But and I'll, of course, be at Goodwood for the Goodwood members meeting. Only there Saturday, driving a Ford Mustang in the V8 race. So just on the Saturday evening. So that's me for the weekend.
Fantastic. What a lovely roundup. And yeah, thanks as always for tuning in. See you next week.
Cheers.
See you. Bye.